Welcome, everyone, to Wizards and Warp Drives, the podcast where three grown-ass men get deeply nerdy about the things they love. My name is Nacho, and joining me, as per usual, is Fred from How to RPG, and the mighty glue stick himself, Mr. AJ Pickett.
Hello.
Hi, here we go. Down, down. Or is it up, up?
You will believe a man can fly, I think was the stinger for this one.
Until you don't.
I will believe in the future of CGI. Yeah.
Yeah.
And be still unimpressed.
So today we are going to cover the legacy of Christopher Reeve's Superman movies, which is from 1978 to 1987. If I do sound a bit broken, it's because I watched Superman 3 and Superman 4
Oh, God.
in the last 12 hours.
Yeah.
Back to back.
You will learn things about Superman that you've never heard before, and also our opinion, which is far less important. And yeah. Nacho, you had an amazing fact you just laid on us about Russell Crowe.
A fact that I learned. So Russell Crowe back in the 80s was originally a singer before he became an actor. And he released a song in 1982 called I Want to Be Marlon Brando.
My God.
And considering he went on to play Jor-El, who Marlon Brando played in the original Superman, I was just speculating whether he actually prophesized it.
It was amazing. The way that they did the alien effect of Krypton in that first movie, I thought was quite amazing. And also the fact that they shot the first and second movie at the same time because they were originally planning on making a 3-hour long. So Superman 1 and 2 are the same movie, essentially. Yep. Exactly the same. Well, sort of. I mean, they did have an issue with the director getting fired. Yeah. But so that's why you ended up with the Donna cut and the other one. But yeah, the black light making all the uniforms and costumes and stuff shine really, really brightly, making everybody look like they were super tanned was both hilarious and also just so effective. A simple filming technique to just make the lighting bizarre, and how they really leaned into everything is crystalline to the point where even Marlon Brando's face was kind of carved into a crystalline bust at one point. And you could imagine that they always talk about the Kryptonians being more dense than others because the Kryptonian's body is as dense as crystal. Like their planet is like close into the star and super dense. So that was like the whole theme of it. Krypton is, super dense, crystalline. Yeah.
And as with all people who like crystals, we discover that not only are their bodies dense, but also their minds, because they don't realize that their planet is about to explode.
Yeah.
But let's Nacho, go do your thing, dude. And then
let's get this on track. So so we'll do this in an order. Otherwise, we're just going to go.
We're going to go deep in the weeds already. Yeah.
So I'll do each movie. Give the director, screenwriters, the cast, brief synopsis. I've got some facts. We can go those afterwards if you like, or before, and then we'll just pull each one apart. So Superman the movie, 1978. So this is the kind of blockbuster film. So I guess Star Wars had come out, Jaws had come out, Rocky had come out. The face of cinema had changed. Richard Donner was the director, who is a fantastic director who went on to do things like Goonies and Lethal Weapon. The screenwriter was originally Mario Puzo, who is most known to be the author of The Godfather. We got Marlon Brando top billing as Jor-El, Gene Hackman as Lex Luthor, Christopher Reeve as Clark Kent / Superman, and Margot Kidder as Lois Lane. So this film just sets up the origin of Superman as an alien from a destroyed planet of Krypton, who is raised on Earth as Clark Kent, discovers he has superhuman abilities, and assumes the role of Superman to confront the villainous Lex Luthor, who threatens millions with nuclear missile plot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So in the American culture, we've already had televised series of like short film sequences and stuff like that of Christopher Reeve. So he's already very well established absolutely to the core of the American life. I mean, apple pie, American dream, idealized version of America, and him being the representation of their sense of justice and fairness and the American way. So, small town boy goes to big city, has superpowers, and keeps himself secret and hidden so that people that he loves is not harmed, and conceals his powers from the world out of fear of becoming a tyrannical dictator. Yeah. But this also sets up the reason why Gene Hackman, playing Lex Luthor, hates Superman so much, and he kind of explains it in a later movie. You don't really hear a lot of it or see a lot of the reason why Gene Hackman hates him so much, but it's because Lex Luthor considers him to be selfish for not sharing his technology, his Kryptonian technology, with the world. And in a later movie, he likens him as Prometheus, who has not shared fire with humanity, but has reigned as a god. Which is kind of, I mean, but yeah, and So you got Gene Hackman, you've got the guy I'm not sure who played Otis, his
Ned Beatty.
Ned Beatty, yeah. Plays a really bumbling, cartoonish character, and he's kind of you kind of get some relief from that from Miss, not Moneypenny,
Tessmocker.
Jeez, I can never remember that name. I can't even imagine how they said it on set.
It's not a real name.
No, yeah, and she kind of like she gets replicated many times in later movies with a side character. Who gets reprised by other actresses. She was probably the better of the trio of villains because she was kind of understandable and had a kind of a heart, but also she was selfish as hell too. It's like, I will save you, Superman, as long as you save my mother first, and he forces him to promise, and he can't break a promise. He can't tell a lie, so she kind of screws him that way. And also, this is the movie where, sorry, I'm going deep in the weeds here already. This is the movie where Superman does like ridiculous things like stitches continents together and
Stitches what?
Oh, it gets worse.
Goes back in time. So he is forbidden from interfering with human history, but yet in the first movie he goes back in time and changes history, and with no apparent consequences whatsoever. So
I can go through some highlights of the plot if you like.
Yeah,
so
sure.
It starts off with Krypton. The destruction of Krypton. The planet is spectacularly destroyed, and Jor-El sends Kal-El to Earth, leaving behind him and his wife, Lara.
There's also the sequence where the trio of villains get condemned to the Phantom Zone as well.
Yep, right at the beginning. They
a big setup there with no payoff in the movie.
Sequel bait, but it wasn't. He was.
A sequel at the start of the movie. Yeah,
wasn't. It was more because Donna got fired. Which will, when I get into the facts,
they intended on releasing it all as one movie, so the decision to cut it into two movies came later.
Yeah. So obviously, Kal-El crashes on Earth. He's raised by old Ma Pa Kent to where he lives a normal life amongst other 40-year-old teenagers.
Yeah.
I wrote down young Clark Kent.
40-year-old teenagers.
Young Clark Kent reminds me of Bobby Boucher. Is my note from watching this.
Pretty much, yeah.
Even when he runs.
I want to play foosball. Yeah, the running faster than a locomotive sequence. The running was not well done. He was clearly on some sort of a crane thing that it was being pulled along.
Look, to be fair, that scene is probably the worst running scene I have ever seen in the movie. But then every other scene where you see him running, it's perfect.
Yeah.
It's perfect, apart from that shitey scene.
Yeah.
And we don't get a lot of really shitey special effects in this movie, which is kind of amazing. But yeah, that's one.
Old Pa Kent dies of a heart attack.
Fantastic actor, by the way. Pa Kent did a really great job. Every scene that he's in is really emotive and captivating, and his death scene really, really strikes home. Like he's genuinely upset. He's like, oh God, oh no, like he knows he's about to die, and and
it's pre-warned in the beginning when they find the baby, and he goes to lift the truck. He's like, "Oh, be careful of your heart, dear."
yeah.
And then the baby lifts the truck. So
yeah.
So it's kind of almost it's foreshadowed very early on. Well, it's this is. I always thought he was in this movie a lot more than what I remember.
No,
and
but
it's Glenn Ford.
Glenn Ford. Yeah,
it's Glenn Ford, and I think this part of the movie is really sort of shines a light on the fact that Superman can't fix every single problem in the world. Oh, and unless he decides to turn back time, that might be a bit easier.
Right.
But
also, I don't think it was necessary for us to see a completely naked toddler standing in a crater. That was weird.
That one scene is, to me, sort of is everything that's wrong with Man of Steel's Clark Kent. Jonathan Kent. The way they, even though he's in it, fuck all. It's just an effective moment that even you can do. You've got all these abilities, you can't save your dad from a heart attack.
Yeah, I think the Jor-El sequence should have been as short and punchy as that, and then the Marin-Pa Kent should have been a bit longer to establish more of his life and his moral conditioning and stuff, and maybe shown how his personality was different from a human in his rigidity, because like Marlon Brando's character said, the Klingon, not the Klingon, the Kryptonian heart is different, is more resilient than a human heart. What he was talking about is like we're not as emotionally complex as humans, I think.
I think AJ really needs to talk about Star Trek because it keeps coming up.
I do. Yeah. No, but it's like when you really like watch the movie and dive into it, there was a lot of potential, but I think just the name Marlon Brando got a bit too much.
Marlon Brando, great actor, worst person ever.
I'm not worried about the worst person either. I'm just thinking about how many days or weeks he had to actually be on that film to film it, and how much he was paid.
I'll save you. I'll chuck one of my Marlon Brando facts here now because this is a good point.
Because the amount that he was paid for the time he spent on that film was
he earned $14 million for 10 minutes of screen time, and he refused to memorize any lines at all, instead reading them off prompts, including Kal-El's nappy.
What a massive prima donna prick you would have to be. What an alcohol-soaked dick rag to demand that sort of like treatment. Oh my god!
Did he get paid $14 million to do The Godfather?
No.
I don't know. I mean, his name drew people to watch the movie, for sure.
He was top billing, for 10 minutes. He was the first name on the screen.
First name that appears, like
14-minute opening crawl.
Yeah. So that's what he got paid for, really, is bums on seats in movie theaters. So he was there for a name on a tag.
And he did a pretty good job. He did an okay job.
Yeah,
he did a pretty good job. Yeah,
he played a crystal dick Kryptonian pretty well.
I prefer Russell Crowe's Jor-El, to be honest.
Anyway, let's leave that movie alone. We'll move on to a different movie.
Clark deals with this personal tragedy of his dad dying by fucking off and leaving his mum alone to go to the Antarctic and throw a crystal for no reason at all. I guess the crystal spoke to him or something.
Yeah, never really established what. Yeah, he just had a vibe. I guess I need to go north. Where you headed, son? North.
Did you guys just watch this movie? Did you not pay attention? It talked to him. He in the movie. It says it talked to me, and it's basically told me to go north. Oh. So I've got to take the thing north.
There's so many versions of this movie. I don't know if we even watched all the same one. So I watched the theatrical one. So maybe mine seemed a lot shorter than I remember when I watched it. But I think there's like about 3 or 4 different cuts of this film. So we might not have all watched the same movie.
So my impression was it went and it vibed on him. It did the whole crystal. And he went to the barn and he uncovered the concave remnants of his crystal ship that he arrived in.
Yeah,
and that was just the crystal was just sitting there, glowing like literally like a glow stick. And then later on, he's holding it up and looking at it, but I didn't hear any voices or anything. I don't know.
No. But he They don't have the voices, but he does explain. He does explain to us
He says to his mum, "I got to go north."
I've got to go north because, and later on we get sort of an explanation from him with Lois, and he says it kind of talked to me and told me to come here and build this. So this is why I did it. So
Okay.
that's, if you've got to take those pieces and put them together. I really like the journey north. I really like how the Fortress of Solitude was made. It was really awe-inspiring when I first saw it. It still is. It's kind of magical. Growing crystal structures was really creative, clearly advanced technology, but highly original. I hadn't thought of anything like that.
Yeah.
I'd never seen anything like that. And the architecture,
and quite realistic too.
Yeah, the architecture of the Fortress of Solitude was not just so alien, it was chaotic. It was just chaotic and like
order yet chaos. Yeah.
I guess he kind of went through puberty and became Christopher Reeve.
Yeah, he was inside there learning for what 5 years or something.
No, I think he went from 40 to I think he went from about 16 or 18. I think he's more like 18, and then he was 40. So there's 22 years.
Yeah. Yeah, Marlon Brando, when he's talking to him at first in the the Fortress of Solitude, he says, I've been dead for several of your 1,000 years by now, which means that he was traveling so fast through space, he would have been traveling at relativistic speeds. So by the time he got to Earth, Krypton was already gone for thousands of years. And
a Christmas decoration, he arrived as well.
In a Christmas decoration, yes.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. So yeah, and there was also in the title sequence, he went through a sun in that spaceship as well, but yet burnt up on the Earth's atmosphere for some reason. I guess it was out of juice. I don't know. But yeah, and then of course he goes to the Fortress of Solitude and he comes out fully grown as so he's in there for like 5 to 12 years or something like that. So for a long time. Oh no, it might have been 12 years in that, and then
there's literally he was sort of like just come out of school. He's about 18, and then
so 12 years.
His father says, after we've had this this learning period, you'll be about 40 years old. And so I was like, 18, 40, 22 years. It's 22 years he's in there. It's a long time.
So he's 40. He's 40 years old when he does his internship at the Daily Mail, the Daily Planet.
Yeah, because he doesn't age the same as everybody else.
Okay, so he also doesn't tell Lois Lane how old he is as well. So I think it was 12. I think it was 12 years that he was in the Fortress of Solitude the first time. That's my take on it. Viewers, you can let us know.
Anyway, after that, the film just totally shifts to a totally different film, where it becomes a satirical comedy, where he gets a job at the Daily Planet, where he works with a Lois Lane, the star reporter who apparently can't spell.
Well, that's not the only thing. It's not the only thing, but yeah.
Chain smoking, complaining.
Superman seems to repeatedly save Lois from helicopter crashes. And then we get introduced to Lex Luthor, the big bad, who does an interview with Superman as well, and he just discloses all his weaknesses in an interview. This is how you could kill me.
Not super smart as Superman.
Luthor attempts to cause an earthquake by launching missiles to sink California so he can obtain valuable real estate. Luthor learns about kryptonite and plans to use it to kill Superman. Missiles are launched by the military without verifying any coordinates. Lois dies, but Superman reverses time by flying around the Earth at high speed, saving her and preventing the disaster.
And preventing the concern for any future movie that might be released, because Superman can just fly around the planet again and turn back time.
Doesn't go far enough back in time to stop the other missile from blowing up a significant portion of Arizona, but or wherever it.
He could have done it if he really wanted to. He could have done it if he really wanted to.
He could have, but it's like, I'll save one life, but not lots of lives. So he was just as selfish as anybody else.
Yeah, he could have gone back to the dinosaur age if he wanted to. He could have gone back in time and killed Hitler.
He could have gone back in time and saved Krypton.
Yeah, he could have done that.
Did you say Kidler?
I did say Kidler.
Is it like Kid Hitler is?
No, because if you say the word Hitler right on a YouTube or anywhere, everybody gets really upset
We'll get cancelled
and thinks that you actually think he's a nice guy and that you're promoting him. So it's better to call him Kidler so that people. Oh dear.
Oh no! I'm just thinking
boy.
of a baby with a little moustache. Superman punching a baby with a moustache.
All right. Okay. So have we got some facts and some?
I've got some facts here. Okay. Richard Donner was chosen because apparently Spielberg was deemed too expensive. This was actually an independent film, funded by Salkins, and Warner Brothers jumped on as the distributor. Mario Puzo handed over a 500-page script, which then had to be trimmed back
to 300 pages.
It was not just trimmed back; it was rewritten because it was so goofy. They said, and so campy, they had to change almost all of it.
Yeah, Christopher Reeves, when he initially read the 300-page script, and he didn't know he was going to get. He wasn't a fan of Superman, and didn't really know the comic or much. He was more familiar with the acting and the old show of Superman, and he's come from a very prestigious family that was related to the Kennedys, or Jackie Onassis Kennedy, and he lived in Princeton with his mother, and descended from the original people from the Mayflower and all that sort of hoo-ha. So like an old American, old money family, and he got into acting and was basically, his advice was concentrate on your studies, and his mum said, like, promise me that you're going to finish your academic career before you get into acting. And he stuck to that pretty strongly, and also had he was discovered by a casting guy who also stuck by that as well. So he turned down a lot of potential roles and good opportunities in favor of him doing his studying. And he eventually got awarded an honorary doctorate from Juilliard or wherever it was, but he didn't actually finish his Princeton, I think it was Princeton or Cornell University. He didn't finish at Cornell. He did his final year. Was his first year at Juilliard, was considered his final year at Cornell because he basically was doing acting there anyway. And out of the 2,000 odd people who auditioned to get accepted at Juilliard, only 20 people were selected, and Robin Williams was one of them, and they did a lot of their classes and stuff, Robin Williams and Christopher Reeve together, and they were close friends for the rest of their lives. In fact, Robin Williams was the godfather. Christopher Reeves was the godfather of one of Robin Williams' kids, and also the godfather of another famous actor's kids as well. So he was quite interesting. But when he got the script and read the 300-page script,
I don't want to correct you there. Marlon Brando was actually the godfather.
Okay. So when he got the 300-page script, he was impressed at how seriously they actually took the movie role, and that's what were really attracted to him. And Donner was known for verisimilitude, so the details in the movie. So a lot of the things which we probably take for granted were obsessively followed, like, make it like a real news office, or make the conversations between Lois and the woman in the thing unintelligible babble. Like, that's what women sounded like back in the 1970s. It's like, they talk differently to men and things like that, and make Clark Kent sound like an old-fashioned guy. When he says swell, and Lois has this big reaction to, like, nobody says swell anymore, Clark, is this idea that he's out of time, as
because
well.
He's been gone for 22 years.
Yes, yeah. So right at the start of it, it's like
he's a 40-year-old man.
Yeah, it's like he's from Depression era America, and then he's shoved into 1970s America. So yeah, it's kind of interesting.
It wasn't in lining with the comics at the time either, because in the comics, Clark Kent was actually an anchorman, and the Daily Planet was a TV show. So it was very much based on the writer's memories of the old George Reeves sort of era of Superman more than like keeping in line with where the comics were at the time.
Yeah. Also, Christopher Reeves was quite thin. He was 6'4", but he was quite skinny, and he had to put on 14 kg of muscle.
Do you know who trained him?
Yes, a world famous bodybuilder, weightlifter.
No, he was trained by David Prowse, who is Darth Vader.
Yeah. Oh, okay. Not for the first movie.
Yep.
Yeah, no, for the second and third. The third movie, the Richard Pryor one, he was actually much more bulky.
We're not going to go there yet.
No, God, no.
All right.
Neither should he. Nobody should.
I want to just throw some names out. So these are some actors that DC approved. There's some names here. So
Warner
first
Bros.
off,
Isn't it Warner Bros. That approved, or was it DC?
I think it was DC, and then
okay.
So Paul Newman, he was offered all three roles. He was offered Superman, Lex Luthor, or Jor-El. He turned down them all. Christopher Lee was approached for General Zod. But names for Superman, there's some here that I think we need to just sit on for a little bit, especially one. I had to double check that this was correct, and it is. Muhammad Ali, Al Pacino, James Caan, Steve McQueen, Clint Eastwood, Dustin Hoffman, and Elton John.
Dustin Hoffman as Superman.
I like Elton John. Why did we not get that one? Oh,
dear God.
Can he sing the song?
So if you believe in the multiverse, people, somewhere out there in time and space and probability, there are universes where Dustin Hoffman was Superman.
He would have had to have those shoes that put like an extra 2 feet.
And
really big boots.
Somewhere Elton John is singing the theme song from The Lion King during Superman. With those cool glasses and outfits. Oh yes. We could get rid of that stupid Superman red and blue suit with the underwear and go for a sparkly silver suit and cape. Oh yeah.
I think it was off the hype of Rocket Man. Like they were like, Rocket Man's a really good suit.
I don't know.
And Superman came to Earth in a rocket. It just kind of
maybe it was the cape. The cape would have had sequins in that case. There's when he first comes out, there's a African American guy who's dressed up like a pimp who goes, "Nice outfit, man." And I could imagine if that was Muhammad Ali, that would have been hilarious. But the American audience would have gone absolutely fucking ballistic during that era.
Yeah, he was a big Superman fan. He was even on the cover of a comic at one stage. So I think he might have personally nominated himself for that role, knowing Muhammad Ali. I think he might have wanted to just...
that would have been a very different movie.
This is one of my favorite Gene Hackman facts. So at the time, Gene Hackman, he refused to shave his hair, and he made a series of wigs. But the other thing is he had a moustache, and he didn't want to shave his moustache off. So Richard Donner, and Gene Hackman tells the story quite well. You've a tracked down YouTube interview. So Donner had a moustache as well. So Donner said, "Look, I'll shave. If you shave your moustache, I'll shave my moustache." And Hackman was like, "Okay, fair enough." And he he went and shaved his moustache. Then came out and said, "Right, I've done it. You shave yours off." And then Donner just peeled, and his was a Velcro moustache. So he had tricked Gene Hackman into shaving his moustache off. So he must have been wandering around set with this Velcro moustache on for fucking weeks.
That's great. Full disclosure, I've never really liked Gene Hackman. I've never liked any of the roles he's been in, and yeah. I didn't like him. I didn't like him as Lex Luthor at all. I did believe that him being an egotistical megalomaniac, but yeah, I didn't really like his character. He was definitely comedic, where he should have been more serious, I think.
Well, the problem is he was stepping on that fine line between being comedic and not being comedic, right? And he actually does a pretty good job of trying to step on that line of being Lex Luthor most of the time. But he's got these moments where you're like, you're not really, you're like a cartoon villain when he hires Otis, of all people, and then decides that the most sensible thing is to set off the fault line for profiting off land is like a super duper dumb idea. Because people are going to notice. People are going to
that's
notice
right.
that a big chunk of land fell
The
into
San
the thing.
Andreas fault. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah, and that's not a good thing. There's going to be an investigation. People, the security around.
Maybe don't live underground if you're going to set off earthquakes as well. Like, you're in the worst.
Yeah.
So the way they do this is they capture they basically reprogram a nuclear missile, and the test, as far as I can tell, originally the two missiles were supposed to fly across America and then hit each other and annihilate each other without it causing a nuclear explosion. I think that was the original plan, which is crazy. And then they set up a series of roadblocks because the missiles, for some reason, are being transported on a truck with a couple of accompanying vans and jeeps behind them. And every single one of the soldiers, apart from maybe one soldier that's guarding the actual missile, goes out of their vehicles and goes and investigates whatever the scene is, because apparently whenever anything interesting happens, all Americans leave their vehicles and gather around in a crowd around whatever is going on. This is just a fact in movies. It allowed Otis to get up and reprogram the missile. Not, because he's Otis is essentially his expendable, minion. He doesn't care whether Otis lives or dies or gets captured or goes back to jail. That's the thing, and he needs a stupid dupe who will do whatever he says. But of course, the downside of that is that Otis always bumbles and gets something wrong. And the first thing he gets wrong, of course, is he punches in the wrong coordinate sequence, or he puts the numbers in incorrectly, and it's just like, and he has to figure out how to stop it again. Then somehow, mysteriously, I guess he had a backup plan. He has a house on a truck that they stops, and then they get out, and the entire thing stops again on a bridge, and the Miss Schimmelpenninck.
Tess Mocker can actually do the job properly because she's the smartest one out of all three of them.
But for some reason, she has to come up from underneath the bridge and climb over to the edge of the bridge. And then
you've got to understand, they only threw tarpaulins over these missiles, right?
Yeah.
Really, really good security. And one person, and everybody disappears and has a chat with whatever's going on in the front. There's nobody actually standing, and it's not like 4 guards or 5 or 6 guards standing around this missile to make sure nobody plays with it.
And of course, you could just like open up a panel and get into the guidance systems without any tools. They do have a tool belt, but no. Well, Otis had a tool belt in the first thing, but she doesn't have a tool belt in the second one. So apparently,
because she's smarter, she doesn't need tools.
Right, she can just use a nail file or something like that.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
The ironic thing is that this is totally the most serious film out of the 4 we've watched.
Yeah. So believability is out the window from the very outset.
I already did the Marlon Brando reading his lines off a nappy. The last lane flying. Can You Read My Mind was originally written as a musical number.
Mm-hmm.
They changed it to in a monologue. And interesting enough, the Kryptonian crest, or the Est shield as the family crest, that's actually Marlon Brando's idea and has become canon, officially DC canon now.
Oh. Can I just say that Lois Lane and Superman scene where she's flying with Superman?
I just skipped forward over it.
It's so terrible. It's so fake and it's so sappy. And I'd watched a movie that was taking itself so seriously, and I was like, yes, this is what I remember in the comic books. It's not campy nonsense. And then I got to this scene, and I'm like, oh, we had a few little hiccups along the way where he's a goofy, bumbling mess, but this is like awful. I just did not know what was going on. I wish that scene was gone. I really do.
Yeah. The scene where he's paralyzed with the kryptonite around his neck, and of course the reasoning that Lex Luthor comes up with, he discovers there must be, the radiation from the planet must be lethal to him. It's like, quite a leap of logic there. And then he's like grabs a book off his bookshelf and says, "Ha! Here's where he's like instantly finds it." It's kind of funny.
Do you know what I find more amusing is that Lex Luthor understands that Superman's weakness that will kill him is kryptonite, which makes no sense that he would understand that. Superman is not even aware of this. So how the heck is he aware of it? It's really strange. I remember that scene where Lex pushes Superman into the swimming pool with the kryptonite necklace and doesn't seem to be able to effectively find a method to kill Superman that doesn't involve him treading water in a swimming pool. He's not the smartest villain. Like, you would have thought at this point, I can put a bullet in him and he is dead. Okay, he's done. And then I can throw him into my swimming pool if I really want to, but it won't matter because he will be dead. I put one through his head, one through his heart, double tap, she's done. No. But I mean, of course, that would be the end of Superman. I did not like this scene. My grandmother looked at me while this scene was going on when I first watched it when I was 7, because I was 7 years old in the theatre when I was watching this thing. And she said, why is Superman not taking the kryptonite necklace off since he's in the swimming pool and since the kryptonite is obviously killing him and not good for him? And I said, I think it's because he's too weak and he's in the swimming pool and he's having trouble doing that. She said, you just swim down and then you can get underneath the thing and it will come off. And oh my gosh. We thought, well, it must be really, really heavy. It's just hard to get off. And then Test Mocker finally releases him from the necklace, grabs it and hiffs it like it's
She
nothing.
kisses him first, though. That kiss of him, and then saying, "Why did you kiss me before you took it?" And she says, "I didn't think I have a chance of kissing you." And how do I get with good guys? Is like, again, her sort of selfish thing, and the idea that she's good at heart and she's upset with Lex Luthor because he fired a missile at New Jersey where her mother lives, and just didn't care. That was interesting.
Anyway, sorry.
No, that's everything I've got on the original Superman.
I've got a lot. Do you want to go AJ first, or shall I go? Because
I think you go. You've been quiet.
A lot more about this movie than the other 3 movies, right?
I've got a lot actually on 3 and 4, I think, but that's okay.
Okay,
it's more a sort of event.
I'll spit out a few facts that I found out. I think that this movie, on a budget that finally ballooned out to $55 million. It's kind of amazing that it made a gross profit worldwide of $300 million. Because if you do your figures, normally you have to make, whatever the budget is, you have to make 4 times your budget to make back the marketing budget, the cut that the theatre gets, and all the other things that go on. So it made a profit. It made a reasonable profit. I mean, maybe $100 million off that movie for a movie that really had no budget. There was no set budget for this thing from the people that were putting it together. It had no time schedule set for the production of the 2 movies. Richard Donner, as the director, had no idea and was asking what the budget was and what the time frame was so he could work to a budget and a time frame, and they would not tell him. So the Superman movie 1 and 2 suffered from really poor production planning and trying to make 2 movies over what essentially turned into 18 months or almost 3 years. It was quite, you're talking about post-production as well. There's a lot of stuff that happens after. So there's a lot of problems with doing a movie this way. Not having a time frame, not having a set budget, not having an idea of how to do it all. Like, they did not know how to make a man fly, and they decided to make a movie about a man who flies.
Interesting fact about Christopher Reeves is he was a qualified glider pilot, and later on he became a bi-wing tiger moth pilot enthusiast that was kind of pivotal to a further role. But he actually, the way that he was moving and things like that, and sort of aerodynamically gliding and stuff, was all him. So he took to he sort of demonstrated, this is how a guy would fly, by moving aerodynamically and shifting his body weight and stuff like that. So he actually provided a lot of direction for that himself.
Which is great. Yeah. Made it much more convincing.
Because he was a naturally very athletic person. Like he did a lot of sports scholarship stuff.
So much so they used it as a tagline for the poster. Yeah. You'll believe a man can fly. Yeah. I think was the tagline.
Yeah. I think the first half of Superman is almost perfect for me. And there's
when you mean the first half, you mean up to the solitude of Ford.
No. I would say the planet Krypton was great. That was really unexpected. It was a wonderful scene. I like that scene. I actually think it's really impressive.
I really enjoyed watching those Krypton scientists get blown up.
Yeah, the
I like
Krypton, the
just
planet collapsing and blowing up. It's still terrifying. I keep watching it. I think I remember how I lost perspective of what's up and what's down, and there's people falling in all sorts of directions. And I'm like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
That was great. The
Just
trial of Zord.
Just the perspective of how they go past the red supergiant of the star, and Krypton is right there, like next to, like in a Mercury position, close to the star. It's just like, wow, the gravimetric forces and stuff must be enormous. And so that was like, oh, that's all I really need to know is the people who live there. First of all, they shouldn't look human; they should look like puddles. But the idea that they're super dense was like, yeah, that makes sense.
I really like the trial of Zord and his two cronies, Ursa and Non, who get sent to the Phantom Zone. It was nothing like anything I had seen before, and as a 7-year-old, I'm thinking it's bleak. It was so bleak. It really showed a hard side to the Kryptonian civilization that
How do they pee?
they don't need to worry about peeing because they're in the Phantom Zone, mate. They're in the Phantom Zone.
They're super dense. They're super dense. They just reabsorb.
Yeah.
It looked like they were in an album cover, right? Like they just got transformed into a record.
Yeah.
And we don't see what Kryptonians eat or drink, so we have no idea whether they even do eat or drink.
Crystals.
So this superhero movie is one of the first times that I've ever seen a TV series or a movie portray a superhero and actually take the subject matter seriously. At least the first half of the story. I wanted more of that. And I think that's where most people have not really succeeded, is they've tried to turn Superman into a comic book joke and campy and funny, and the comic books were never like that. And the superhero doesn't work that very well when you do that. The first time I saw him fly was awesome, like really, really convincing. There are only a few scenes in the whole movie where it doesn't work, right? And then the movie starts to fall apart, I feel, when Clark Kent meets Lois Lane for the very first time. It becomes campy, goofy, comical. There's comedy elements built in. We're starting to go back to what people view Superman as being a comic book story, which is not to be taken seriously. That really got me annoyed when I saw that. Let's shake up the bottle of soda and then give it to him to open up. And we get this. It's like, what the hell is going on? And then Otis shows up. I hate Otis. He's stupid. He's annoying. I hate that character. I was so glad when they ditched that character. I don't mind the actor, but the character sucks.
Yeah,
it's really bad.
Yeah,
that's where
he was a big. He was in Deliverance, wasn't he? Ned Beatty. Is that where he was? Yeah,
I don't remember.
Quite a famous actor.
What did you guys think of? There's a lot of really amazing scenes, in my opinion, where Superman is saving people, such as like sealing the fault line, San Andreas fault line, stopping the dam flood, washing out that town, catching Jimmy Olsen as he falls off the dam, stopping the bus full of kids falling. I didn't really like him taking the cat out of the tree. It just seemed like, but
also ugly cat, man, ugly cat.
It was an ugly cat, yeah. And you're gonna have cats in a movie. Make sure
that's
it's
a classic. Yeah. That's just a classic throwback to.
I also like the
original
bit where he formed the rail, and the train went over top of him. That was pretty cool.
Yes, yes, that was great.
It was brought to life by John Williams' score, though. I think that first time he rescued something, and that score swells up. It was a combination of the flying effect, Reeves' performance, and John Williams' score. I think that made it just worked. Those three things combined, were magical.
Yeah. There was like in the Superman Returns movie, there was more of a deal of they seized upon in the first movie where he first reveals himself as Superman. He's forced to by the accident with Lois Lane in the helicopter, but you sense a sort of reluctance there, like he doesn't really like. Oh, okay, here we go. In the Superman Returns movie, they played up that much more, like, okay, I've been gone for a long time and I can remain anonymous now, but then something forces his hand and he has to save Lois Lane again. and he's in the bar there, and he's just like, oh,
Superman
okay,
Returns
here we
is
go.
meant to be a sort of legacy sequel to the Donner cut of Superman 2.
Yeah.
Can we not go there? Because I feel like we need to talk about that movie separately from this discussion.
Yes, I know. I'm just comparing the two for that scene.
Yeah. So if you watch the Donner cut, it's meant to line up more with Superman Returns.
Yeah. What about the you remember the scene where there's somebody climbing up the side of a building, a burglar, and it had the perfect amount of comicalness without being goofy and silly. Superman's still taking the whole thing quite seriously, but he's got a bit of a quip like, why aren't you using the elevator? And saves him, drops him off, puts him in front of a police officer who just happens to be standing right underneath the guy.
Yeah, there used to be police that walked around on the street like that.
So I suppose that's handy. I suppose he probably would have seen him climbing up the building.
Yeah,
but anyway,
but not getting mugged in the middle of the broad daylight in an alleyway. No. Pointing a gun at them. Come in here. It's like, sure.
That was a reasonable scene. There was the scene where he stops the bank robbers on the boat, and somebody comes up behind him and hits him with a crowbar, and bad vibrations. And I was like, please don't do that anymore, people.
Yeah.
Don't do that. Superman cannot be portrayed as a goofy character.
Oh, it gets worse.
Yeah.
They redid that whole thing with the gun on the boat and them shooting Superman in the eye. That was a much more effective, description of like, he's invulnerable. Like a bullet will deflect off his eyeball. That was quite well done. But of course, they didn't have the budget to show a bullet deforming as it hit him at slow motion.
Do you guys remember the first time you watched the crashed helicopter and Superman saving Lois Lane? I remember seeing that as a kid at 7 years old, and it was awesome. Had plenty of tension in the scene, and I rewatched it, and I realized it still had that tension. And I've watched this movie so many times.
I first watched this film via a ViewMaster. Does that count?
Yeah,
I think I had the ViewMaster before I saw the film. So I had I don't know if I need to explain what a ViewMaster is.
Yeah.
So
that was back then. That was the only way you could watch a movie outside of the cinema was the ViewMaster. Yeah.
So I had that scene already in my mind, but it didn't. Yeah, it was amazing because, like I said, because of John Williams for me.
What strikes me is that pilot was incredibly inept. A cable getting looped around the bottom of the helicopter is not a big deal. The winds weren't even that severe, and he could have just put it down quite easily. But he panicked and slammed it on sideways, and it wrapped around. And
he had a heart attack.
The pilot.
Yeah, the pilot had a heart attack. That's why the helicopter went out of control.
Superman's Bane, mate. Heart attacks.
Heart attacks. Everybody has heart attacks. I'm sure of it.
In the first movie, it's a cable comes loose on the top of the building because it's rattling, and then it goes around the bottom, and then it comes loose, and it gets wrapped around the bottom.
Oh, that's right.
The undercarriage of the thing, and then it starts spinning around, and then the pilot's like incapacitated from panic or whatever, and then the rotor crashes into the
you're right.
area,
you're
and
right.
that's what causes it to go.
The heart attack is with the train driver.
That's right. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah. What about Miss Tessmacher? Her voice, the voice of reason, which is quite an annoying voice, but I like her more. She's presented as basically a bimbo, but I like her more. I wish she get rid of Lex Luthor and Otis. She be the villain. I could see that.
Yeah.
More.
Also, really dates the movie too, like her referring to this may get me a slap around the mouth, before she says something, and just like other bits like that.
There is another sign like where is it the cat bit where the kid goes, "Oh, Superman rescued," and then you can hear this audible slap.
Yeah, don't lie. I told you not to lie, and then this sound. Jesus. Kid got laid out.
Yeah, it's pretty rough, isn't it?
Yeah, it's like it was a different time back in the 1970s, kids.
So because it's essentially the same film, should we just get into Superman 2?
No, I got a couple more things I want to mention about Superman 1 because I still am traumatized by having to watch Superman 2, 3, and 4, and it did not get. I actually found Superman 2 more traumatic than watching the other ones. Christopher Reeve, I still think, in terms of playing Superman in this movie, he did almost a brilliant, like an amazing job. I really liked his depiction of Superman. I am not so keen of his adult Clark Kent. His adult Clark Kent is a bumbling man in a suit. It was really frustrating to watch, even as a 7-year-old when I first
I
watched.
like it. I like his Clark Kent.
His Clark Kent was too much. I like his Clark Kent as he stops becoming so bumbling and he just sort of fades into the background.
Yeah.
I did not like the goofy stuff. The Superman suit, even back then, was hard to sell, and it's clearly still out of place. It still looks too comical.
The plastic belt, the plastic yellow belt, really is the downfall of that suit.
Well, it's all of it. Let's
there
get
was
real.
There was an interview where Christopher Reeve and Donna were talking about his playing both Superman and Clark Kent, and Reeves made a big deal about it like being two separate characters, and he says, no, you're always playing Superman, but sometimes Superman is playing Clark Kent, but you are always Superman. And that's the key element, is that Clark Kent for Reeves was a separate character. So he was playing that. So he changed his body posture and all of that sort of stuff. So it comes across in the movie as Superman playing this. He would hunch his shoulders. You see him noticeably doing that. He changes his posture whenever he turns into Superman. He puffs his chest out and goes to his full height, and he becomes calm and his voice becomes more assured.
Yeah.
And so there's that noticeable transformation. It's not just a pair of glasses being Clark Kent. It's his whole mannerism changes. And that's the important aspect of being Clark Kent, is that it's a role that Superman is playing, but he's always Superman.
Now, that was good. Like, the change in his voice, the hunching down, his demeanor, the glasses, it all worked. It was the bumping into everything and the stupid silliness.
Overselling the I'm just a bumbling human. It's like, is that how he sees humans?
Apparently.
He's incompetent.
Yeah, incompetent, bumbling idiots. Yeah.
I remember Christopher Reeve saying he was really struggling with how far he should go and what to do with Clark Kent. He said, I didn't have to do much acting with Superman. It was Clark Kent that I had to do all the work. And he said there was a point where Clark Kent was bumping into so much and tripping over so many different things, it was just getting too much. And he had to tone it down. Believe it or not, he did it. It was much worse than that. I feel like that was the mistake. I actually like his portrayal of Clark Kent later on in the other movies, surprisingly, because he said, I've been bumping into so much stuff and tripping over so many things as Clark Kent. I felt like Clark Kent should know everything is now. He shouldn't still be bumping into stuff and tripping over things. I think that was the mistake, was going to slapstick. It's the American slapstick, comical sort of portrayal. I don't think it sells very well. I didn't like it.
Also, there's that massive screw up he does in the alleyway where he describes the exact contents of Lois Lane's handbag unnecessarily. And she's like, how do you know exactly what's in my handbag? And he's just like, just lucky guess, I suppose. It's like, no, he's got X-ray vision. He can see everything all the time. And also that whole thing of like, what color is my underwear? And then she steps away from the wall and he goes, pink. And then she steps back in front of the wall again. It's like, don't look at me. Yeah. And then she says, do you like pink? And it's like, yeah, okay.
So I need to talk a little bit about Lois Lane. I feel like the actress who played Lois Lane did a better job in later movies than this job, because Lois Lane, even as a 7-year-old, came across as a character who was self-absorbed, a self-absorbed bitch.
Yeah.
You could never understand why.
What do you see in this woman, man?
What does Superman like this woman? Why does Clark Kent like this woman?
She's plucky.
She's really shallow. She smokes. She's a workaholic. She has no time for anybody. She has no time for him unless
she's
he's
clearly a bulimic.
Yeah.
She can't spell.
Can't spell.
I can't.
Rude, obnoxious.
The not being able to spell is not the issue.
Not very attractive.
Yeah, I could never understand.
I like Margaret Kidder.
Yeah, I feel like her portrayal though in this movie is too much, and I never got convinced that she was the love interest for Clark Kent or Superman in this movie. Later on, I could see it, but not in this one, and I don't understand why he would even have any interest. It's such.
Well, you got to understand that this man has never had sex, and this is probably the closest he's ever been to a woman, because he had to play
Lena Lang.
We don't see any of that in the movie, though. Well, we see him
do.
interested in her, but then he gets stymied by having to stay behind and look after the sports equipment while all of his friends go off, and then he shows off by turning up at his house before they even get there. And then his dad pulls him aside and says, "Why are you showing off?" And it's just like, "Oh yeah, I'm sorry."
I think the problem is this film is written by men in the 70s. And all the female characters are suffering for that.
Absolutely.
It doesn't have. It's not. No fault of Margot Kidder.
No,
sorry.
She's trying to do the best she can with what's written.
Yeah, this is a very much a film of its time that is written and directed by men who don't know how to write strong woman characters.
And going by
their idea of being a strong woman character should be an annoying bitch.
Yeah. Going by the behavior of Marlon Brando and Gene Hackman, as men who are like got these major roles, getting handed tons of money, and then being absolute prima donnas. That is the tone of men at the time. And Christopher Reeve said one of the things that the portrayal of men was changing at this time, and it was okay for me to play a gentler side. And when Superman sees that she's dead, for instance, and he's putting her down on the ground, and he's ultra careful, and then he strokes in very gently on her face. They were very deliberate actions on his part to show a gentler masculinity of Superman, which was quite against the grain of the generation that Gene Hackman and Marlon Brando came out of. So they never would have played it that way. She would have just slumped to the ground or something like that. I don't know. Or would have slapped her to see if she was alive, sort of things. I don't know, but that gentle thing, and then the bit where he screams with torment as he's breaking his vow of like changing the thing. That was the most memorable and pivotal part of the movie for me, was seeing the actual emotion of a Kryptonian break, and him go, rah! Just like not accepting that he couldn't save her. That was the best bit of the movie for me, and the reason why I will rewatch that movie again.
Okay, Superman 2. I'm going to get into it. So Richard Lester is credited as the director, even though Richard Donner directed 49% of this film. He was fired, and Richard Lester took over. So this film opens with the recap of the first movie without Marlon Brando's Jor-El. Zod and his team are freed by a hydrogen bomb in space. The first thing they do is they alter the faces of Mount Rushmore using lasers.
Oh, the first thing they do is the attack on the moon guys, the astronauts.
Oh, yes, yeah, they throw the moon guys.
Sound in space, as was typical in the 1970s.
Lois discovers Clark's secret after he saves a child, giving up. Is it at Niagara Falls?
Mm-hmm.
That's right. She dives in, and then Superman decides to give us his powers to lead a normal life with Lois, but he then regains his powers to confront Zod, defeats Zod by removing his powers at the Fortress of Solitude, and erases Lois's memory with a kiss.
Oh God. Is there more?
The absolute insanity of jumping off Niagara Falls just to prove a theory is says a lot about that.
So Brando Jor-El scenes were cut and replaced by Superman's mother, because he was currently he was suing them. There was a lawsuit going on. Richard Lester replaced Richard Donner. He decided to add a bit more humor to the film because he thought the humor was lacking. But in 2006, they did release a Donner cut with the missing footage. There's also a 1984 TV version, which includes an extra 30 minutes of extra scenes featuring more Lex Luthor and Superman. And
Is the Donner cut the one where Lois, instead of jumping off Niagara Falls, she shoots him in a hotel honeymoon suite with a gun?
Yeah, I remember a scene like that. Trust me, 30 minutes more is not going to help that movie.
No. I like it more because of the fight with the other Kryptonians. That was more interesting.
The Donner version ends with him flying around the world instead of the magic kiss.
Right.
That's how he erases her memory. So the magic kiss is a Lester ad. Yeah.
Right.
So for me, 1980, a budget of, would you believe it, $54 million, so slightly cheaper than the first one, but it also ballooned out because it'd been made at the same time. It made a profit of $216 million worldwide, not as good as the first one, which basically meant it didn't make a profit because you got to multiply that budget by 4, and that's kind of all the expenses covered between 3 and 4. So it was not really hugely financially, and they might have got a few million out of it. It's not a lot. I thought that the idea of having Superman fighting 3 villains from Krypton with identical powers was an awesome idea. I was really quite excited for the idea.
They're good too. They're really good. Terrence Stamp is really good in this role. He's actually funnier than I remember as well.
I would have liked to have seen Christopher Reeves do it. That would have been awesome.
I felt the re-showing of the first movie in the
Christopher Lee.
Christopher Lee, yeah.
Okay. Sorry.
Oh, sorry, did I say Christopher Reeves? Yeah, Christopher Lee would have been like, finally I get to rule.
But re-showing the first movie was really tiresome. In number 2,
I skipped that again.
I didn't really feel like I needed to go back over that again. We'd seen it, you know. We didn't need to go there again. I know they incorporated it with the credit scene. The opening scene with Zord, Ursa, and Non is much worse than the first movie because it wasn't the Donner cut. It didn't have the original Marlon Brando there. It was reshot, reused scenes. It all, you know, the imprisonment and the Phantom Zone just did not have the same impact as the first movie. I'm like, if you're going to reuse stuff from the original movie and then add other stuff, make it good. And it wasn't good. That atomic bomb used by the terrorists on the Eiffel Tower scene.
Yeah.
Did any of you feel concerned or tension build up for any of that?
Because I skipped the entire thing. It was just another setup for him to save Lois Lane.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was something added by Lester. The hydrogen bomb.
Do you guys? I really struggled. I wanted to punch somebody because the 3 Kryptonians on the moon dealing with the astronauts. It was so tacky. With nothing related to real world physics. It was so obvious and it looked so cheap. It looked like TV movie stuff.
Yeah.
Really did.
Like the $6 million man takes on Bigfoot.
Yes.
Yeah. I think personally, if I was going to do that movie and write that movie again, I just recently learned that the reason why you can't go into the torch on the Statue of Liberty is because back in like the 1919 or 19 something, like there was a bomb that was put there by, I don't know, Nazis or something, and so they closed it all off there. I think it would have been much more interesting if that was filmed there instead of the Eiffel Tower, and actually, you know, involves a bit of American history and stuff. That would have been far more interesting things. Like had a presidential visit that was going to the Statue of Liberty or something, and Lois Lane was up there investigating why she saw somebody going up the ladder and went and investigated. But it would have been a more believable, plucky adventurer actually doing something and then getting in over her head and filming it there also would have brought the budget back down and highlighted an American monument.
The Statue of Liberty is such a well-traveled tourist location, even more than the Eiffel Tower. I understand that they went with the Eiffel Tower because they could actually get permits for it.
Right.
The Paris authorities were much more keen to have them film in Paris than those people dealing with the Eiffel Tower, with the Eiffel Tower, with the Statue of Liberty. So I just don't think it would have happened. But I do remember hearing some stories around just a permit problem.
Yeah, but I mean that's what I would have done. I don't know what the realities of it would be, but I thought
that shows Superman's more of an international superhero as well, rather than just an American.
Yeah.
But I agree. It would have been nicer there. Lex Luthor's prison escape. It's pathetically planned, but at least the one redeeming factor is Lex manages to escape in a balloon of all things that nobody notices floating above the prison. That the Otis character is removed from the movie and left behind to stay in prison. Thank God Otis did not continue on.
You think Richard Lester, because he loves slapstick, you think he would have loved that character? I was really surprised.
I would love it if he had put himself in the movie and had himself dropped into a volcano and burnt alive. Lester, you I don't know what
he
you
would have
were
been the
thinking.
guy who was underneath the elevator when it eventually fell down the bottom of the
Yes, wash, yeah. That love story between Lois Lane and Superman is full-blown love story now in this movie. It's really unconvincing and completely illogical. I did not understand what the hell was going on.
Yeah,
Did you guys?
Margot Kidder and Richard Lester did not get on, which is pretty much why she was 99% removed from Superman 3.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they just clashed, but yeah, it was the magic kiss thing. Yeah.
That wasn't the only thing, man. There was so much going on. And AJ's just pointed out some very big holes.
Yeah.
But there are so many more. There are so many more. Yeah.
Yeah.
What about how Superman loses his powers? Did it make any sense to you? Because it didn't make any sense to me.
No.
It really doesn't add anything to the story in a meaningful way. I actually thought that it was actually a distraction from the fact that he has to deal with 3 superpowered individuals is enough. You do not need to have this, oh, but he's also lost his powers, then he has to go and get his powers back. It was so, I don't know how do you describe it?
It was a bad setup for the ending of the villain. So they came up with the solution of how he would beat the villains, and then they strong armed it into the plot to make it an excuse for why that device was there in the first place.
There's a weird moment though when he loses his powers. Remember, he gets beaten up by that guy at the diner.
Yeah,
and then at the end of the film, he goes back, fucks that guy up.
Yeah, it's like, oh my God, Superman has really got an issue. He does not take well to being shown up. Yeah,
It throws him through like a pinball table or something, doesn't it?
Yeah, it did represent him like a representation of him not understanding what human pain was, sort of thing. It's like I don't think I've seen that better done more effectively than in Constantine when Tilda Swinton's character as the angel feels pain for the first time when she gets punched in the face, or he gets punched in the face, and goes, like, you know, ow. And so him getting beat him up in the diner was just like, oh, now I understand, you know, what a fair fight is. That was kind of interesting.
Yeah.
So I would have left that in anyway.
So
just for seeing what an American diner in that era was all about.
So the fight scenes between Superman, Zod, Ursa, and Non.
Zod.
When I was 7 years old, they looked slow, they were boring, they were goofy, they were slapstick, they were silly, and they were really unconvincing. And I think
obviously no training by professional fight coordinators and stuff.
No, and I was wondering what was going on with the blowing scenes, and apparently Lester it was not scripted. It was not in the script. They just made it up.
There was improv. This film was heavily improv. Yeah.
There's a lot of, and it shows. It's bad improv. And yeah, no, I did not feel tension. I was not concerned. You could see that because they had that comical aspect to it, and people were, you know, trying to continue talking to people as there's a huge wind trying to blow them away, and they're still on the phone. Like, it wasn't taking itself seriously anymore. And this is, I think.
Also, we had to keep in mind that people had not seen superpowers depicted in real, like cinema stuff. So this is all new to them. So the spectacle of it was enough to overcome the ridiculousness of it.
Not really.
We're post Avengers era, so we've been completely inured to superpowers and stuff. We're just ho hum to it about it now.
Me. When I was 7 years old, I was definitely, I could seriously did not understand what the hell was going on. I was really upset that this is what we were getting. And
I would like to talk to you when you were 7-year-old. You would have been an interesting dude.
And I mean, you could see the you know, the telltale signs when they're on the moon. But good Lord, this movie for me, the script, the production, the acting, quite often, the special effects, particularly, the story are weak. I consider it an average TV movie, not a theatre movie at all.
And yet it's still my favorite out of all of them.
And yeah, well, it might be for you. I hate this movie more than I hate Superman 4.
Ooh,
Oh yeah,
Oh,
that's me.
ooh.
I'm
Okay.
done with that. That's my conversation on that one.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
I'd like to. We should go watch the Donner cut. It would be
Yeah.
interesting to see.
Yeah.
Yeah, to see if that changes. Yeah. So, should we go into Superman 3?
Sure.
Yes, if we must.
Okay. So,
Oh,
Superman 3.
one small point. I have actually played as a cosplay at a costume party. The three of us, we're all dressed up as General Zod and Ursa, and I was non. Yeah,
Who's like the Jaws of Superman?
yeah, we had
The
matching.
Jaws, as in the Bond villain, not the shark.
Yeah, like those environmental protection suits. We had black versions of. Maybe we dyed them black. I'm not sure. And then we cut them to shape, and we just used duct tape for the shiny bits. Yeah.
Non is like the comical version of Jaws, and
Yeah.
Jaws was pretty comical.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. So 1983, we got Superman 3. This is 100% Richard Lester. Main cast: Richard Pryor.
Richard Pryor. It's a Richard Pryor comedy movie. My God. Superman tacked onto it.
In limited roles, we also get Christopher Reeve and Margot Kidder. And Robert Vaughn replaces Lex Luthor as another Lex Luthor type character.
Let me tell you, Eddie Murphy could have pulled this off. Richard Pryor, no.
No one does scared like Richard Pryor. Like, he is just 100% scared in this movie. So this film starts off it's just a slapstick comedy. It starts off with a whole bunch of like basically a guy.
It's 100% Otis.
The opening credits start off with a guy basically looking at a woman and not watching where he's going. That just sets off this whole like comical, like with phone booths moving off and a blind guy's dog running away. And anyway, it starts. The opening credits are just this like comical slapstick, really badly done sort of thing. Then we meet our main character, Gus, who is a con man, who's basically at the unemployment line. Gets told that he's going to get cut off from the benefit because he can't hold down a job. He tries to bum a cigarette off someone. The guy hands him a matchbook, which tells him, "Hey, why don't you study to learn computers?" So he goes to Polytech. Turns out he's a computer genius because that's how that works.
Mm-hmm. It's an idiot savant.
He starts stealing small amounts of money, something known as salami slicing.
Yeah, he's shaving off percentages of transactions, so massive amounts of transactions. It's basically the same plot as Office Space.
Office Space,
He does Office Space crime. He's like, nobody will notice 1 cent off every transaction. Yeah, they do. Yeah.
So, his boss, Ross Webster, notices that. But instead of firing him, he decides to hire him to build a computer to control the weather so he can ruin the Colombian coffee fields.
Of course. What else are you going to do?
Meanwhile, I guess you're wondering, hey, what's Superman up to during all this? So Superman's currently dealing with office life, including a bingo game and a high school reunion. He also puts out a chemical fire.
Can you imagine?
Lois briefly shows off a bikini before she leaves for a holiday for Bermuda. But anyway, let's get back to Gus because he's the main character in this film.
Unfortunately.
Gus goes to Smallville so he can tamper with computers as a subsidiary company. He causes chaos like overbilling. He does this thing like that obviously you can do with computers where he makes the traffic light people come alive.
Yep. Because it's an animated scream out there. Yep, for sure.
And during that, he accidentally creates some synthetic kryptonite, which causes which he disguises himself as general and presents it to Superman. and this basically turns Superman into a bad guy.
And is it a different color super kryptonite in this, or is it still green?
Still green.
It's still green.
So we haven't established that law of different colored kryptonite yet. Because
No.
normally it would have
that.
to be red kryptonite that would turn him into a bad
Did you
person.
really think the director had any idea of the Superman comic book at all?
No, not at all.
Yeah,
I think he had some idea about how much cocaine he could probably get access to on set.
Yeah, so after being sort of corrupted by the synthetic kryptonite, Superman faces his evil counterpart, where they go into some sort of battle. I don't know if this takes place in those...
Would have been more realistic if Superman had snorted a line of powdered cocaine that was kryptonite.
Yeah.
It would have been more interesting.
Yeah, I don't know if this battle takes place in Superman's mind. It's very unclear.
Yeah.
And then Superman...
It was all a dream.
Yep.
He wakes
Superman...
up at the end of the movie with a big line of powdered kryptonite and says, "Never again."
Yep. Superman ends up fighting a supercomputer, which absorbs Webster's ugly sister, turning her into a creepy robot that still haunts my nightmares to today.
Yeah.
And then Gus redeems himself by helping Superman defeat the supercomputer. And, that's the film.
Yep.
Yeah. Wow. I have some interesting facts for you. For those of you who are wondering, were they able to deal with the budget problems? Yes, they did. This one was actually planned out to a certain degree in terms of budget and timing. So it had a budget of $39 million, much more controlled than the last ones.
Mm-hmm.
Well done. But its gross profit worldwide was $80 million. It was a phenomenal financial flop that apparently nobody thought could possibly be topped. Don't worry, there's still time.
Yeah, Christopher Reeve at the end of this said he was done with playing Superman. A lot of people were like, well, that's the end of their careers, sort of thing.
Yeah.
It was also the death knell of Gannon, the film company that was behind.
No, it was the next one.
Oh, was it the next one?
Cannon.
Sorry. Yeah. Okay, Gannon was notorious for putting out low budget.
I've got some facts on Cannon.
Yeah,
that was the next film.
But you're right. They deserve to burn in hell.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, it's testament to how bad the third movie was. Is that they could buy the franchise of Superman after that. It was just like, ooh.
There are some good moments in this film. I think, like I like the bit when he changes into the photo booth and takes the photos of him changing. And interesting, that kid is actually the kid that played the baby in the '78. Right. So the kid he hands the photos to is the original baby Superman.
Wow.
Richard Pryor made a passing comment on Jimmy Carson's TV show that he'd like to have been in a Superman film. So they thought he was serious, and they offered the role. But he had at the time he accepted the role because he had a crippling drug addiction. So it was very much a money orientated decision.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was. Can I just say, the good thing about this movie is that Superman does a lot of flying and rescuing people in trouble.
Does he though? Like in that opening scene, there's a scene where a bank robber robs a bank and runs into the street, and the cops just fire with no accuracy, like accidentally hitting a car into a crowded street, and that car crashes into a hydrant which fills with water. So out of all that chaos that happens, I think Superman only rescues the guy in the car. He doesn't do anything with the bank robber.
Yeah, like in the first movie where there's a car chase and they're firing indiscriminately and the cops are just like, it's not until they get on the actual boat and escape that way that Superman intervenes, like when they're getting away from the cops. But otherwise, he just lets the cops have a armed shootout and speeding vehicles through a major metropolitan city.
Well, this cop fires just into a crowded street, with no consideration.
Yeah, very 18, very 18. Yeah, nobody gets hurt.
Can we talk about the ski scene?
Can we talk about the fact that about the good? Let's talk about some of the good stuff about this movie, because I took the time to write one or two sentences that were actually good about this movie. So this movie focuses on Clark and a better love interest. His love interest is far more convincing, and she's much more lovable than Lois Lane in the first movie, and heck, even the second movie, frankly, and tries to address the impact of technology on the world in the most appalling way. But it does try to do some stuff. I can't believe that Richard Pryor was paid so much money, $5 million to play Gus. And he was supposed to, they put him in there because they thought the movie needed to be funnier. But he was not funny, and he was trying. And he was allowed to improvise many of his lines. And you can see people in the footage of the behind the scenes laughing at shit that he did that was not funny. And like, this is one of those problems where people were so in love with the fame of an individual that they did not accept that he could do stuff that was not good, and that he was probably the wrong person for the movie in the first place. They were completely, starstruck by Richard Pryor.
Yeah, I would have got Eddie Murphy.
Well, I think Eddie Murphy shouldn't have been in there as well. I think making Superman a comical thing is not a great move. But
yeah.
Do you remember you were describing it, Nacho? Metropolis has really gone to hell. There's chaos breaking out everywhere. Everybody.
Boots don't fall over like that.
Yeah, every single person in the city is clumsy, stupid, and involved in some sort of slapstick, silly
chick
shit.
Must have been hot because it all starts with her just walking past and one guy going, "Huh?" And then it's just
everything has gone out of control. Metropolis really needs Superman right now, because if he doesn't show up and solve some of these problems, everybody's going to die. People are leaving bombs lying around in the middle of the street and nobody's noticing them. Like, that's how bad it was getting.
The flaming penguin.
Yeah.
He picks up the flaming penguin.
And there's bombs. You can literally see the penguin.
And people are shooting in the middle of the street. Oh my fucking god. The only thing he does is rescue the guy in the car. Which is just across the road. Oh, yeah. But the bit with just how they don't understand how computer works, or like computer genius, like how that character was written. I forgot. I thought he was a computer from memory. I thought, oh, this guy was just a computer genius. But no, I totally forgot that he was an unemployed con man that just got a packet of cigarettes that went, do you want to earn money? Study computers. And he just went to like a polytech. And then it was like, how did you do that? I don't know.
Yeah.
It was just like Richard Pryor was just tapping things on the keyboard, and all of a sudden it's like, I'm a genius. Okay. And then it was his boss's plan was like, it was to do with coffee.
Well, yeah. Do you know it? So Robert Vaughn is a quality actor, right?
Yeah.
He's a good actor. He does a reasonable job with this villain with what he's given, I feel. But his character is still over the top, written into the script. I have to have ownership of all the coffee, all the oil in the world. Let's build a supercomputer because Gus has told me it can do anything I want. And let's kill Superman. I still feel like he's not quite as... No, he's much worse than Lex Luthor in the first movie. Now that I think about it, he's much worse.
I understand you know how to write a program to sort of scam money. Yeah, cool. So it's completely logical that you'd know how to build a supercomputer that controls weather.
Yeah.
That's the next.
Well, it's not just that.
Yeah, of course.
He also uses the supercomputer to create an energy crisis by making all the oil tankers go to the Atlantic.
Well, the supercomputer doesn't do that. He does that from a simple computer in Smallville to make sure that nobody can track who's been controlling the thing. The supercomputer gets built later on.
I thought that was after Lana invites him to Ricky's birthday party.
No. He just goes to use
before he
a
has the
normal
nervous
computer
breakdown
and a little rinky-dink shop to control all of the tankers in the world. Like literally.
Okay.
No. The Vulcan satellite that was built by the government is what controls the weather and wipes out all the coffee.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So the supercomputer was
later, right at the very end.
Right.
Right.
Yeah.
That the
That's right.
the supercomputer is where he controlled all the oil tankers.
Yeah. You were saying Gus's skiing scene?
Yeah, can we talk about the skiing?
Yes,
Like,
we probably.
you think that's when Superman's going to show up, isn't it, and save him? Like,
No.
first off,
I was hoping he was going to die.
why would you put skis on a skyscraper when you can't ski and it's snowing outside? Like, and then he falls down this building, and I'm like, as a kid, I'm thinking, okay, this is when Superman's going to show up, and this is the redeeming arc. He's going to realize, oh, Superman's not a bad guy. He saved my life. I owe Superman. But somehow he just miraculously skis down the side of a skyscraper and then just lands on his feet.
And lives. Yeah. He's a cartoon character. That's why. He's a comic cartoon character. It was really bad. And the fact that, the main villain had a snowing platform on the top of his building was ridiculous as well. The fact that Gus got involved is just hamming it up as much as possible. Do you guys know much about Pamela Stevenson? Because she was born in New Zealand, right?
Mm-hmm.
Billy Connolly's wife.
Yep.
And she was hired to play the squeaky-voiced bombshell character, basically replacing Tess Mocker, who reads really big books but is still quite stupid. And the character is basically a slut, which tries to be funny but is not. And Pamela is actually a psychologist, a writer, an actress, and a comedian. Now, as a comedian, I wouldn't say she's the best comedian in the world, but she's capable of better than this movie puts out. So, God knows, maybe you should have let her improvise some of her lines rather than the stuff that was written.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm still glad
film,
they ditched
isn't it?
Lois Lane. Yeah, it is a film. I'm still glad that Lois Lane has been ditched from the story, and Lena Lang, who's really forgetful but actually a nice person, unlike Lois. I feel like that was a better love interest.
That's Annette O'Toole, right?
Yeah. And what is weird is she played that character
in the first movie.
She plays later on in a TV series. She play
the mother,
Superman's mum. Yes, that's right.
Yeah, she plays Martha Kent.
Clark was into her, until she turned out she had that kid.
I don't think that was the problem. I think that the problem
that
was
kid was so annoying.
Oh yeah, and prone to accidents.
And also, when he fakes that bowling scene, like, why did you go so hard? Like, there's probably someone on the other side of that bowling alley that just got a bowling ball through the side of their stomach.
And did nobody notice that suddenly all of the the amount of power coming off was so much that all of the Skittles were smashed to pieces, which are designed not to smash into pieces like that? Yeah. But I mean, I still like the Lana Lang character. I feel like if the character of Lana Lang had
was
been
a more interesting, realistic romance. Yeah, definitely.
It was a much better. I feel like that's the character that should have been Lois Lane in the first movie and continuing on. And I don't. They ditched Lois Lane essentially because one, they didn't like the actress, and two, they didn't know how to write her in the first place. It was really strange.
Yeah. And he was into her until the kid showed up, and then that kid, I don't know what happened to that kid. He just fell over in the field. Or did he trip over grass? I can't remember.
I
just
don't know.
watched it. I can't remember.
He hit his head on a rock or something, I think it was.
And then he rescued the kid, and then the kid's like, "Oh, you have to be my best friend and come to school." And he's like, "Oh, dude, I'm just trying to hit your mum." Just trying to hit your mum.
I got super seed and it needs to fly.
Yeah, I don't know if this is worth it.
Yeah. Bad Superman is a dick, by the way.
He flicks the peanuts at the bar.
All the stuff he does is just childish shit.
He looks good, though. I think Christopher Reeve is looking really good in this film. This is probably the most physically fit he looks.
This is where he put on the extra 14 kg from bodybuilding. Yeah, weightlifting. Yeah. So he's doing a lot of cardio and stuff as well.
But character-wise, bad Superman doesn't kill anyone and is not really truly evil. And the character change.
He's actually described as having a nervous breakdown, not splitting into two separate personalities. Well, he does split into two people, but that's a Kryptonian nervous breakdown apparently.
Yeah. But
Yeah.
I felt like it was unnecessary. There was too many things going on in this movie. There were
Yeah.
too many story arcs they were
Trying to
trying to put
repeat
forward.
things from previous movies and wedge them
Yeah,
in there for no particular reason.
yeah. And you know, even here's the problem: you build the story around not an interesting event that the villain comes up with. You build it around what will help the character to develop,
Mm.
and the character is not Gus. It's Superman. It's Clark Kent, and
It's
they did
Gus.
not do that. It shouldn't have been
Yeah.
Gus. Yeah. Um, I actually think even the portrayal of Superman, no, normal Superman, not bad Superman, was awful in the script as written. It was mocking and undermining to the character. Like it literally, I felt like they really they don't understand the character at all, because literally you are getting the character to do things, and the character's involved in things that really doesn't value the character at all. You know,
Yeah.
that fight between Clark Kent and Superman was so lame when I watched it when I was back in the day. It made
Yeah.
no
Is
sense.
that in his head? It's just everything about this film is so unclear. Like,
But
did he
Yeah.
actually morph into two people, or
I'm
but
not
they,
entirely sure he did because, yeah, it's depicted as it's always in the Wikipedias and stuff. It always says he had a nervous breakdown, not he
yeah,
was split, or
I
became
think
an
it
evil
was.
Superman.
I think the problem is that it was supposed to take place in his head, but you can see other people around who are running away. So it's if
yeah,
they had
they all fucked
eliminated,
off.
if they had eliminated that, it probably would have helped. But even back in the day, like the fight between them was so lame. It was so bad. And then we had to finish off with a supercomputer feeding off America's electricity and trying to kill Superman. And it turns into a video game.
Yeah,
Literally turns into a video game.
that
And
I
then,
think was
Yeah.
supposed to be the setup for Brainiac in a later sequel, but it never eventuated.
Brainiac was meant to be Brainiac was meant to be the villain. Originally meant to be the villain of this film. But
yeah. I think having Brainiac would have been much better than this nonsense, you know. Kryptonite
yeah,
beams, again, that whole scene was not exciting back in the day when I first saw it.
all the
And
computer
it's,
stuff was done by Atari, by the way.
Ah,
yeah, well, it looks like Atari too. So
Mm.
I would say the script, production, acting, special effects, and story were not bad. They were embarrassing. This is
That scene
bad.
is scary, though. That scene when she gets turned into a robot.
Yeah, that would be the only scene. But then you know, I rewatched it. When I first saw it, it was bad. But when I rewatched it, it looked really, really fake, and it wasn't really. It didn't have the same impact for me. Maybe it
Mm.
scarred you for life. But that's all right. Now that we've been scarred for life by you know, people transforming into androids or robots and really bad movies, let's move on to the true scar.
Yeah, 1987. So Canon Movies took over the Superman franchise. So
I need to go walk away and get another cup of coffee. Carry on.
Yes, don't worry. You do that.
So I got to step away from this subject.
The reason AJ is moving away is that he could not get through the entire movie. He was telling me that he could not watch the entire thing. He got halfway through and he said, "I've had enough."
yeah,
And
so
we all tried to watch all these movies all the way through. We really did.
I watched this at like 11 o'clock at night when I was half asleep. The good thing about this movie, it's 90 minutes. I appreciate that.
And it does end.
Yeah,
It does have an ending.
yeah. So Canon, the Canon Movie Group, it's created by a couple of Israeli brothers. I think they were brothers, and they sort of made action, sci-fi, and B movies. Key films they've made in the 80s was Delta Force, Breaking 2, Electric Boogaloo, Death Wish 2, and also Masters of the Universe.
Let's not mention that movie, because that movie's got a lot to it's a lot to say about that movie in conjunction with this movie.
Yes. Okay, so Superman 4, The Quest for Peace, 1987, directed by Sidney J. Furry. Screenplay by Lawrence Connor, and story by Christopher Reeve. This film has actually got a good message, I think. Probably the most Superman message out of all the films.
Yeah.
So
It is. I mean, look, ultimately the theme is stopping war. That's the theme. And Superman can't do it for humanity, even if he tries to do it. Is a great theme. Like, that message was really good.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, things happen.
Yeah, so Superman embarks on a mission to rid the world of nuclear weapons. However, Lex Luthor creates Nuclear Man, a powerful foe who challenges Superman to a fight for the planet's future. So the film starts with Lex and his nephew Lenny breaking him out of prison using a remote-controlled car to drive two guards off a cliff. Lenny is played by John Cryer from Two and a Half Men, who would later go play Lex Luthor in the Supergirl TV show.
Yeah, and
So,
apparently doesn't age.
no,
He doesn't really age. He seems to always look exactly the same. So he's probably not a real person. He's probably Brainiac in disguise.
A kid basically pressures Superman into taking up nuclear disarmament.
Yeah.
And he, which also prompts Superman into once again revealing his secret identity to Lois. Meanwhile, Lex and Lenny, they launch Superman's hair into space, which somehow creates a new supervillain called Nuclear Man. Nuclear Man goes on a rampage, seeking to destroy Superman. Meanwhile, this is going on. Superman decides to go on a double date with both himself and Clark, just for hijinks, I think. He also rebuilds the Great Wall of China and prevents a volcano from erupting.
How did he rebuild the Great Wall of China? I never, in the comic books, I never saw him have eye or finger powers that allowed him to make people telekinetically move around, or the ability to
He
literally
just puts it back together.
put it all back together by just looking at it with his eye. He's got Great Wall of China eye reconstruction abilities. Like this cheap.
It's like restacking Lego after someone smashes your Lego. He just does it with his mind.
Yeah, it's all right. You can stop the problem. You can stop the Nuclear Man. You do not have to rebuild the Great Wall of China. They'll figure it out. They've done it before. Anyway.
Yeah. So a Nuclear Man sees a photo of the girl he goes on a date with and gets a bit obsessive by that, and goes sort of comes to Superman's work, and Superman deals with him by locking him in an elevator and throwing the elevator into space.
Well, because he's not allergic to kryptonite, right? Because he's got the same biological data as the Kryptonian Superman, but he doesn't have that fault. No, his problem is if he doesn't have sunlight on him, he stops functioning.
Yep. Unfortunately, there's a little crack in the elevator door. Some sunlight gets through, and then they have a fight in space. Superman beats him up, delivers a peace speech, and sends Lex and Lenny back to prison. That is the film. They decided to reduce the cost of this film by reusing all the flying shots.
Well, no, they didn't really use all the flying shots because they had to do some shots, and those shots were not good. They look bad because you can tell they have not been reused. They had to make those.
The flying in this film is, oh my god, it's so bad. It's like we could do a better effect on a green screen. It is shockingly bad. Mark Pillow, who plays Nuclear Man, he was discovered as a stripper at Chippendales. Christopher Reeves he was an advocate for anti-nuclear disarmament. So this was his baby, his script. Wes Craven was considered as a director, but he clashed with creative differences with Christopher Reeve. And for a little while there, Canon also owned the rights to Spider-Man, but this film flopped so bad that didn't go ahead. So there is an alternative universe where we possibly could have got a Superman v Spider-Man film.
I'd imagine.
If this film... So, I think... Because this film's failure is probably one of the reasons why, we got the superhero films of today. So there is... There is like a silver lining here to this being so bad that it forced Canon to let go of the rights of Spider-Man, and then Spider-Man going to Sony, and we got the Sony Spider-Man film. So, yeah, I mean, You got to take the good with the bad.
And losing the rights to Superman as well, like because they had to
Yeah.
sell their whole backlog. They had to sell everything. It took them a little while to go out of business, but this movie was made for $17 million. That was its
Yeah.
budget.
Did we talk
And
about like the Chippendale dancer's voice being replaced by Gene Hackman's voice through the whole movie?
yeah. The original actor said he had to actually lip sync himself because they would play his voice, and he had to talk to what Gene had already recorded, rather than doing it the other way round.
Oh
He
god,
said
the
it was
ego with
really
that
difficult,
fucking
which is
prick.
why his mouth. It's really hard for him to line what he's saying with his mouth up with Gene, because they were playing that audio in the background during the filming, and he's trying to talk to that. I saw the interview with him, and he said, "Look, the movie was better before they cut a lot of stuff and they dropped the budget significantly." But he said,
45 minutes of footage apparently they cut out of this film.
"Yeah," but he said
Yeah.
the thing is that he was unaware of all of that until much later on, because they didn't like advertise it. The gross profit for this movie was $30 million. It was really, I remember the backlash to this. It's like people just could not believe how bad it was. The movie budget was originally supposed to be $36 million, which is still not a lot of money for such it's trying to do a lot.
Yeah.
And they took the budget from that to go and fund He-Man, Masters of the Universe. And
Much better movie.
No, well, it's
Still waiting for the sequel, because he did say he was going to be back at the end of Masters of the Universe.
Yeah. This movie's really
I'm starting
boring.
to think Skeletor's not coming back.
Yeah, probably not. This movie's really boring. It was really boring when I watched it the first time round. Rewatching it was painful. I think I may have had an embolism or some sort of stroke.
Say what you want about Superman 3. It's not boring. It's something, but I was entertained throughout Superman 3. This one, I thought maybe it's because I put it on so late at night. This was a hard watch, even though I was thankful it was only 90 minutes.
There's just so many incongruities and so many scientific blunders and so many just absolute hackneyed plots, and just the whole concept of, like, I'm going to put a strip of fabric in with this hair and fire it into the sun and we'll get a clone of me that will come out.
Well, it wasn't just that. Just it wasn't consistent with the canon of the original 3 movies. That, like the crystal, his whole, all the stuff that was around him was gone, and we get all sorts of weird things going on that just don't make any sense. The green crystal was used up. It was gone. It didn't exist anymore, and they brought it back. And then, the Fortress of Solitude. There were a whole lot of things that happened there. I mean, apparently, maybe he fixed them. I don't know. But yeah, my first concern with this movie is when I see Superman saving the International Space Station. That idea itself was all right, but it was poorly acted. The dialogue was terrible, and it was really
whole
goofy.
Space thing with like the making noises and then breathing in space and talking in space and stuff like that. It's just like, oh god.
Yeah.
Well, he just brings that girl to space for the fight, and there's it's like, how does she breathe? How is she breathing? It's not even explained.
Yeah.
I think one of the redeeming aspects, and it's only a short part of the movie, the redeeming aspects of this whole movie is that first Clark Kent farm scene was actually fine. Like that scene there, where you just have Clark Kent talking to somebody about selling the farm. That was fine. There was nothing wrong with that. I was happy with that. It was good. I hated the prison escape with Lex Luthor. That really showed you this is the downfall of the entire movie. From here, we fall into campy hell. Things that are supposed to be funny, things that are not really taking itself seriously. And, ultimately the idea of Superman fighting a nuclear man in concept, when I went to go and see it, I knew what I was dealing with. The concept is all right. The execution was appalling.
This has got a good idea.
This
is in keeping with the Superman character. Yeah, it makes sense if this person is on Earth that
it's
this is something
essentially Doomsday, right? So it's the Doomsday plot that they use in the later movies, or in the comic book, where they take a piece of a clone of Superman but corrupted.
Now, I believe Nuclear Man, the story of Nuclear Man, was actually in the comics, and how he destroys Nuclear Man was duplicated in the comics exactly.
Burying him.
And it basically, he just throws him into a power plant to get him to take him down, and he gets used up. He generates a lot of electricity, and Superman says, ashes to ashes, atoms to atoms, and that's the end of Nuclear Man.
These films, all four of these films, for me, feel like they've had no one that's read a Superman comic involved.
It does, eh? It really does. It's like, Superman comics were not funny. They weren't like Spider-Man. The character did not make quippy little jokes and so forth. It was always quite serious. And that the tone was lost a lot. It's
like someone writing a Batman film, but they've only ever seen the 66 Batman TV show, and that's what they base. Yeah, which is pretty much what Joel Schumacher did anyway.
He did, yeah.
That's what everybody thought the remake of Batman was going to be, because they hired Michael Keaton, who is a comedian. And
this came out one year before 88 Batman.
Wow. So, what a difference a year makes.
This must have been filming around the same time then.
These
two films.
This movie killed Superman, a superhero, not Superman, but Superman and superhero movies for years.
It has no redeeming qualities at all. Like 90 minutes is probably the only positive thing I can say about it. It's short.
Yeah. Do you guys remember that Meryl Hemingway was actually quite famous and well known before she played this? She had Ernest Hemingway. AJ's falling asleep. Isn't that bored? But Meryl Hemingway actually had an acting career, and after this movie, she made movies, yes, but none of them were good. And it's not that she's not capable of acting, because they were talking about her being, one of the next up and coming actresses in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And then she did this movie. And God Almighty, it never went anywhere after that.
Yeah, career suicide
for her completely.
All right, let's sum this up. So,
yes, please.
All in all, though, I think looking back on Christopher Reeves, he was great out of all these.
His portrayal of Superman was great.
Yeah. He like the reading his wiki and stuff like that, and hearing the anecdotes of him. He started off quite humble. It was his first big acting job, aside from stage stuff, and he was very nervous going into it. And then at the end of it, he was quite a prima donna and full of himself, because he believed the hype, really.
Yeah.
Which
and
I
he
think
had been part of the story in the script, right? And I believe so Margaret Kidder said that he changed.
Yeah.
He changed a lot.
Yeah. And also, he was typecast for the rest of his life, really. He did come out with some really good movies afterwards. There was one, time travel one, which has got a really cult following. There's even an organization and stuff. And he was really involved in a lot of humanitarian causes and stuff throughout his life after that, until his accident. And even after his accident, he carried on performing. He appeared in Smallville 3 times as a scientist. So he was still involved in the Superman franchise.
I still don't think we've had a definitive Superman film. Like, I don't want to get into the Snyder stuff, because we've only got sort of 10 minutes.
Yeah, but Carl Urban, we would like to have a word with you about playing Superman.
No, I think I'm interested to see. Superman's in good hands now. James Gunn. I've got a lot of faith in James Gunn.
Yeah.
I haven't seen any footage, so I've got nothing to base it on. Just basically James Gunn's track record as a filmmaker, especially when it comes to comic book movies.
Yeah.
He knows his stuff. He's got a passion.
Was it James Gunn who did the latest that Flash movie that had Supergirl show up in it?
No.
Because I think she was really, really good in that role. I think that whole sequence of Supergirl showing up and
that's the guy that did it. That film suffered from its own problems.
Yes, I don't like the guy who plays the Flash at all, and I think that whole movie suffered because of it.
James Gunn, basically, after his falling out with Marvel, He got cancelled there by Marvel for something that he tweeted years ago, and then they kind of said sorry and brought him back. But in that meanwhile, he signed a deal to take over DC. So he did the Suicide Squad for DC, and that went down so well. He did the Peacemaker. He did an offshoot with Peacemaker as a TV show, and then they basically, and then after sort of Snyder kind of had his go at doing the DC universe, DC and Warner Brothers basically handed the keys to the kingdom to Gunn to take over as the head, basically the Kevin Feige of DC. So we're getting rid of that last kind of like block of DC stuff. Is kind of, I think Aquaman was the last of it now, and now we're going to start fresh with James Gunn vision of DC, and the first real big one he's going to do is Superman. So I believe he's got Crypto the dog involved. He's going really back to the origins of this character.
It's not an origin story, though.
No, it's not, but he is going back to that original, like he's resetting everything. It's not an origin story because we don't need the origin story.
My understanding is that James Gunn has basically, he's still cutting the trailer together. It's not going to be released until July next year. And the tone of the movie is much more serious. It is not a goofy, comical movie, which I think a lot of people were concerned because of Guardians of the Galaxy. They were thought that it would become a sort of like a hijinks movie, and they didn't want that, but they didn't want it too serious because they didn't want Snyder's.
You don't want Snyder's Superman because that was totally opposite.
Yeah. I don't think that Henry Cavill could have not pivoted. I think he could have played the character differently, and I think he
was just an unfortunate casualty. I think of the merger. Like a lot of people. He was great. He was great. Yeah, casting wasn't the issue with the Snyder universe. I feel. I don't think it was, apart from Lex Luthor.
I will always respect Henry Cavill for stepping away from the Warhammer thing, because Amazon was essentially enforcing changes to the plot systematically according to their formula that they apply to every IP that they get. And him saying, no, you can't do that with this franchise, because not only is it disrespectful to the entire legacy of it, but all of the existing fans, which are the only thing that's going to carry this, you just instantly switch them off if you do that. And they're like, no, he's just like, no, they have to conform. And he's like, no, you have to conform. And then he steps away from it, and I'm just like,
yeah, it doesn't seem to just phone in any. Like, he's been involved with some big IPs, and everyone he's involved with, he seems very passionate.
He's one of us, man. He could literally be in one of these chairs talking about it with like even more detail. He would know more about Warhammer 40K than I do. Yeah. So that big respect.
But when you think about all the people who have played Superman, you've got George Reeves, you've got Dean Cain, you've got Christopher Reeve, you've got Henry Cavill, you've got the new guy from, I can't remember his name, who does.
You're going to count Smallville? Do you count Smallville?
Oh yes, you've got Tom Weller. You've got
and Lois and Clark.
I don't remember the actor for that. But I think
that's Dean Cain, isn't it?
No.
Oh, you mean the new one? The new one,
yeah.
The new one, yeah.
But I think Henry Cavill and Christopher Reeve are usually at the top end of people's preference in terms of an actor or a Superman that they really enjoy.
Yeah,
and those two camps are very, very similar, I think, in terms
it's
of
like
size.
Doctor Who. Who's your favorite Superman? Huh?
Yeah,
and also just a reminder that George, the original Superman, he was considered sexy by the time. That was the ideal male physique for that era. So just let you know, that sort of Super Mario plumber build was height sexy back in the day. At least I hold out hope that will come back.
Yeah, this is what a real man looks like.
This is because I'm basically stuck like looking like Super Mario the rest of my life. I have no choice. The moustache, it just grows normally like a fungus.
All right, we're going to wrap this up. That was interesting.
It's painful in parts. I'm glad this episode is over. We don't have to talk about it anymore.
So next week we're going to dive into Flash Gordon. So we're only going to watch one film.
Yeah.
1980.
There will be singing.
It's a classic.
We will sing. We will dance. We will rock out to Queen.
Yeah.
And one of my favorite all-time human beings, Brian Blessed, you will hear me blasting out my replication of his voice.
Yeah. Okay, great.
Yeah.
With only this fruit knife. No, yeah,
And
sorry.
there may be an opportunity. There may be a chance that we will return to talk about Snyder's Superman, and maybe even Superman Returns, because it's there.
Mm-hmm.
You know.
Basically, I'm up for talking about any Superman franchise or any superhero franchise, because I've been a big Supers fan since I was, a baby. And very into like Supers role playing games and stuff like that. In fact, I've designed a Supers role playing game. So, I'm very into it. Super Atomic, yeah,
and Star Trek,
and Star Trek.
Yes,
do Star Trek at some point, yeah.
Because I'm one of those annoying people that loves Star Trek and Star Wars equally. In fact, I would say these days, they've even sort of kept pace with stuff coming out that's harmed my love of the franchises. So I'm as blasé about Star Trek and Star Wars now as each other. They both had IPs that have come out and sort of harmed the franchise.
We noticed.
Yeah,
We got to go.
We got to go. All right. Good night from me.
It's good night from them.
And it's good night from Christopher Reeve, maybe George Reeve or one of those.
In the sky, it's a bird. It's a plane.
It's a podcast. It's another podcast.